Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. Adam Teicher has been a fixture on the Kansas City sports scene for over a quarter of a century now. He has been the link to the Kansas City Chiefs for Chiefs fans for a generation, first in print with the Kansas City Star up until 2013, then digitally with ESPN since then, and of course you've heard him over and over and over with his sharp opinions and good sense of humor on the radio through the years as well. Raised in California, but embracing the Midwest from the time he went to school at Michigan State, and a true lover of the Midwest and this region, Adam Teicher has provided a sharp and pointed outlook in his reporting as a beat reporter of the Kansas City Chiefs for all that time through Marty Schottenheimer and on into the period of greatness now with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Adam Teicher and I sort of see things through a similar light as far as our approach to our work and maybe our approach to life as well. So I think you'll enjoy a fascinating conversation, getting to learn more about Adam Teicher in our Kansas City Profile presented by Easton Roofing, and it comes your way next. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together. I was duped, and I recommend you be next. For better or worse, the ultra-realistic impression of me sits now in my wife's office to spook her on a daily basis. So what is Doob? D-O-O-B. It's the keepsake of a lifetime, a 3D-generated, incredibly lifelike figurine. 66 cameras take an image at exactly the same moment in any pose, and state-of-the-art 3D technology transforms that into exact replicas of you, anyone you know or love, a pet, whomever is close to your heart. Create lifetime memories with a Doob. Visit their Facebook page at Doob 3D Kansas City, or better yet, see their incredible creations. Visit their location down on the plaza in the heart of it at 231 West 47th Street in KC Mo. Doob, be next. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. Adam, we've known each other a long time, and I think we've had a kind of an interesting relationship from the standpoint that I think a lot of people would consider us brothers with different mothers, perhaps, in our general attitudes and takes on things. Would you somewhat agree with that?
I would. We're both have a sort of a cynical eye towards things. So yeah, I would agree that you and I are of a like mind. Yes.
People would probably be surprised to know, and they can read my book and find out that actually I was a very adorable and perfect child who with a sunshiny disposition almost all the time. Let's find out if you had that going for you early on. You were born in Detroit, but hardly raised there. You moved to California when you were just a year old. So you're a California guy through and through, right?
I am, and came by it honestly. Still follow the Angels. That's my one team from L.A. that I still follow, and haven't been rewarded much for that fandom, by the way.
What was it like as being a young boy out in California? Manhattan Beach, California sounds pretty idyllic, was it?
Yeah, it was a good place. It was a lot to do. I sort of fancied myself as a basketball player. The little known fact, I was the last guy to realize I was not going to play in the NBA. Everybody who saw me play could tell right away, and some people who didn't see me play at all could tell right away that I was not going to play in the NBA. So that's when my sports dream ended, was sometime in high school. It started to dawn on me that it was not – the scholarship offers for basketball were not rolling in. So
was that your main and or only real sport that you played?
That was the sport that I enjoyed playing the most and put the most time into. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I played some others when I was younger, but basketball was the one that I enjoyed the most and felt – of course, that I had this bright future in, so I sort of funneled myself in that direction.
Yeah. What was it like being a 7-8-year-old boy in Manhattan Beach, California?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the perfect weather year round and going to the beach, and it's been a lot of years. So I left when I went away for college, and I never went back. I stayed in Michigan all throughout college, and once college was over, got a job. So I haven't been back in a long time. I mean, I've been back for visits, right. But it's almost like I dreamt it at this point. It's like did this really happen? Did I really live here? The streets look familiar, but other than that, it's kind of a crazy deal like that.
Well, tell me how your basketball dream died. The circumstances of realizing that you didn't have it.
Well, that's
trauma for any young man.
Yeah. There was no thud. There was no one moment. It was just, averaging, whatever I did, 6-8 points a game in high school is probably not going to get you to USC or UCLA.
But you played, right?
But I did play. Yeah, I did play. But I can't tell you there was a moment where I realized that. I just figured, hey, if USC hasn't called yet, maybe halfway through my senior year, whatever, that they probably weren't going to be calling. So there went that, and it was time to funnel my my love for sports maybe in another direction.
When did that part of it start for you? Did you always have an interest in things, words and?
Well, my brother and I, we learned to read with the Los Angeles Times sports section, probably like a lot of kids,
right.
Big sports fans. I mean, we used to take turns. One day it was his turn to read the sports page to me, and then I would read it to him, and we would decipher the baseball box scores. I mean, we could tell you what the second baseman for the Phillies did last night. I mean, we could tell you every single day throughout the summer what the second baseman for the Phillies did the night before. I mean, it was amazing how we dissected that. I mean, I basically learned to read with the sports section, so it was sort of a natural. I mean, he went into sports media. He's a few years older than me. He went into sports media. It was just sort of a natural that I went in that direction as well.
You lost your mother as a pre-teenager and your father when you were a teenager. First of all, your mother died when you were 11 from cancer. That's a pretty traumatic age to have something like that lost for you.
Yeah, so, I think there were some things out of my childhood that maybe made it different than the experience for most people. Not that everybody doesn't have rough times. I mean, everybody does. I understand that, but mine were a little bit different. And so that's one of the reasons I sort of had my eye on just getting away and maybe getting a fresh start once high school was over with. And that's one of the big reasons that I ended up going to college at Michigan State. Was
your mother sick for a considerable amount of time before she died?
Yeah, I was young, but it was a long time ago now, but some of the details are fuzzy. But she was sick for at least a couple of years, and it was cancer. So then back then the cancer treatment was certainly a lot more crude than it is today. So it was pretty rough for a couple of years.
What was it? What were the circumstances for your dad?
It was cancer as well, and I was a junior in high school when he passed away. So at that point, I had an uncle who was probably my closest living relative, adult relative, and he lived in the Detroit area, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come out and spend your senior year in high school in Michigan?" But again, I thought that maybe that wasn't going to attract the attention of the college scouts. So
Tom Izzo wasn't coaching.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't looking out in California. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to stay out here as a senior and finish out here. But I will come. I will think about college, coming to Michigan for college.
In the time from that your mother passed till your father passed, was he a single dad?
He was, yeah, he sure was, and he was a great dad, and sacrificed a lot for both me and my brother, and so it was, it was just the three of us, and it was kind of I'd say we're a tight knit family for those 6 years.
Did you somewhat feel like you were given a more raw hand than many? I mean, you're young and you lose both of your parents within 6 years.
Yeah, you can't help but have those feelings at times, but it helps you grow up, I think, a little faster than maybe most people, and I had to, and that's just the way it was. And again, I never mean to minimize the things that others are going through. I know others have issues, so I never really felt like I had it any worse necessarily than anybody else. It's just the way it was, and I had to look after myself at a young age, and that was fine. It turned out fine.
What did you do your senior year? I don't think you were be allowed to live by yourself, were you?
I was with some. I had my own apartment, but it was in the same building as some friends of the families,
okay.
But I mostly was on my own. But there was some supervision there. But I was playing basketball and getting ready to move on to the next chapter.
What was socially your high school like?
Socially, what was my high school like? That's a hard. I assume it was like most. I would guess. Again, because of the issues with my parents, I think that I kind of checked out to some extent for the last couple of years. My dad was sick my junior year, and
right.
then obviously he had passed away when I was a senior. So I was kind of moved on to some extent in some areas, and I was really looking down the road. So I wouldn't say my last couple of years in high school were a normal experience.
Right. Well, it does come time to go to college, and you do follow your uncle's lead and go to Michigan State. Of course, you could have gone to other schools in Michigan. Sure. Why Michigan State?
Well, okay. Keep in mind, as I tell this story, I had no bias against the University of Michigan at the time. It was just this clown school that would bring its football team out every couple years to the Rose Bowl and get pounded by USC or UCLA. So, or one of the Pac-12 schools. So, my uncle said, "Hey, okay, if you don't want to finish high school out here, what about college?" And I said, "Well, I'll look at that, sure." So he said, "Okay, come on out here the summer before your senior year of high school, and we'll take a look at some of the schools." And I said, "Fine," and I did. And the first day, he takes me to Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan, and that is for anybody who's never been here. That's
huge.
It's huge, but it's a button-down place. It is not a very comfortable place. It's people there are grave and they're serious and they mean business, and it's not a particularly fun place. And I picked up on that vibe. I remember being there all day, and I don't remember who we talked to or what we did, but I do remember at the end of the day, my uncle said, "Hey, what do you think about coming to school here?" And I said, "No, I can't do this. I don't want to be miserable for 4 years like everybody else around here." And
why do you think that particular, at least at that time, I'm sure my wife went to Michigan, but she was pretty damn serious, so I guess that she probably fit in with that. She went to one college football game her whole time. She was a singer, is still a singer, but that's what she was doing. And I went to a game at Michigan, and we went to the music school that day, and it was pretty evident that every single person in all these rehearsal rooms were filled was not going to the football game. They were they were serious about what they were doing. And so, what time frame are we talking about now?
Late 70s.
Right.
Would have been late 70s.
So you just picked up the idea as probably a more laid-back California type of person that this was not a party school by any stretch of the imagination.
I didn't necessarily need a party school, but I wanted a place where you could have some fun and weren't miserable, which it appeared that all these people were to me. I can't tell you exactly what led me to that, but there was certainly that vibe for sure.
Okay. Any other consideration to any other place besides Michigan State?
No. The next day, at the end of the day, my uncle said, "Hey, what about coming to school here at Michigan?" And I said, "Nah, I don't think so." And he said, "Well, tomorrow let's go to East Lansing and go to Michigan State." And I didn't know the first thing about Michigan State. And we were there half an hour, and I looked at my uncle and said, "This is where I'm going to go to school." I mean, it was that dramatic of a difference. And the campus there is beautiful, and it was just, you could just tell it was just a different vibe, that everything wasn't so serious and life or death, and it was a place where you could be comfortable. I could be comfortable for 4 years.
How quickly did it develop that you kind of knew what you were going to do?
Well, yeah. I mean, in high school, it sort of gravitated a little bit that way. I think I told you about the sports media.
Voracious aspect of it.
Yeah, so it just became evident that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, at some point I was trying to decide when I was in college, do I want to do this for a living or do I want to go to law school? And I just sort of thought at the time that I would always wonder how this would have turned out. If I'd become a lawyer, I would have always wondered how the other would have turned out. I don't necessarily sit here today and wonder how being a lawyer would have turned out. I think I have a pretty good idea how that would have turned out. That would have been fine, but I would have always wondered what would have happened if I'd taken the other path, and that's really the reason I went into this. Is I wanted to see how it would turn out. Was it what I'd hoped it would be?
When you are considering going to law school, then I imagine you were a pretty darn good student then to even be thinking about it.
Well, probably not as that may have impacted my decision as well. I don't know that I necessarily considered that angle, but I might have been forced to consider that angle at some point because I wasn't the most serious of students. So it may have been that I wouldn't have been able to get into a law school of my choosing for sure. Harvard was probably like the NBA. It was probably out of my reach.
Did the vibe that you picked up when you selected Michigan State turn out to be true?
Yes, it did. It was a fantastic place. It was a fun place. I mean, a good school, but everything wasn't life and death. It was a fun place, and I was looking for a place that had big sports, and
right,
and
very similar to what I decided.
A lot of kids, and I grew up in L.A. where there was big time college football. I mean, USC was very good. It was probably a national championship or two when I was growing up, and UCLA had some good teams as well. So I would go to some of those games when I was a kid. But the first football game I went to at Michigan State, it was a totally different deal. I mean, it was such a more big event at Michigan State than it was at either of these California schools. And it really caught me off guard. In L.A., it's just a game. It's just another thing to do.
Right.
But out there, people planned all day, and we lived in the dorm. And there was a big intramural field where the night before the game they let people park their RVs. I mean, you didn't see any of that stuff in L.A. I mean, people didn't come long distances for football games, but there were people from all corners of Michigan and probably beyond who came in for these games. It was just a bigger deal. It was just a bigger atmosphere.
How were the big sports teams at Michigan State while you were there?
Well, the Michigan State won they actually won the Triple Crown, which was the basketball, football, and baseball championships in the same year, my freshman year, which is the first time that had happened. I can't remember, several years, and it finally happened again. I can't remember. Maybe it was Ohio State did it a few years ago, but it had been several years since it happened again. And so and Michigan State basketball went on to win the national championship that year too. So all three of them.
So you were there with Magic Johnson.
He was a year ahead of me in school. Yeah.
There you went to school with Magic Johnson. You and he were buddies. You hung out.
We did. Played basketball against him one time. There's a story there too.
Yeah, all right. Well, tell it.
Well, we were. I was there with a buddy, and we were walking through the field house one summer. It was we cut through because there was a storm outside, so we were taking a little shelter. And Magic and some of his guys were playing ball. Some of the Michigan State players were playing ball, just goofing around. And they needed two guys, and my buddy knew one of these guys, so they said, "Hey, come run with us." So I dominated the game, by the way. So we ended up running with them for a little while, playing with them for a little while in the field house, and it was, I dominated the game. There's no video that proves otherwise, so I dominated the game.
How would you describe yourself as a basketball player?
I could shoot.
Right.
And the rest of my game needed refinement. I was a good defensive player when I wanted to be, which wasn't all the time.
Right. Did you go the route of trying to writing for the school paper, that type of thing?
Yeah, I did. I started right away when I got to Michigan State, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was I felt like I should probably try to do this because I was enjoying it and thought I was pretty good at it. So
right. When you're covering good, so had you gotten to the point where you were at the paper when Michigan State was winning the national championship, or would that come later in your college time?
No, I was at the paper then, but covering wrestling and tennis. Right. I hadn't worked my way up to the
right.
bigs. That came the next year,
okay.
My sophomore year, when they were terrible in basketball, terrible in football, and terrible in baseball again. So I started to get my practice covering losing teams in college,
of which you've had quite a bit of experience
for sure
through the years, no doubt about that. All right, as you're approaching the end of your college time, you now are obviously convicted that this is really what you want to do. What was the process of moving into the quote-unquote real world?
Yeah, just basically sending out resumes and looking for a job. And I sent out a bunch and still have a shoebox full of rejection letters, actual on-paper rejection letters.
You occasionally look at that for inspiration to go say, hey, you missed the boat here. I work at ESPN.
My daughter was recently looking for a job, and so I showed her, hey, here, this is part of the deal. These rejection things are part of the deal, and showed her those. And she actually did look through them. I showed her some of them, and some of them were nice, and some of them were don't bother us anymore, that kind of stuff. But
were there any you should find another line of work type things?
Not in those words exactly, but you will never work here with this with your skills. You will never work here, kind of thing. So there were a couple of those, yeah, and I there sure were. I remember them to this day. But ended up getting a job. Believe it or not, there were a few job offers, and I ended up taking a job in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay.
So this California guy by way of Michigan was planted down south.
Was that a bit of a culture shock?
Yes, it was. I was there maybe 3 weeks, and I'd realized that I shouldn't have taken the job. I should have taken one of the other jobs, but
So you had more than one offer.
Yeah.
That was viable.
Yeah, they had been filled. So back in those days, we actually printed resumes, and so I was there maybe 3 weeks and already had a resume printed and was already starting the process of getting out. What
was it about Chattanooga at that time? We're talking about early 80s, basically?
Yeah, I didn't feel like I fit in there. The sports staff was, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, 15 people, and I was the only one who wasn't from Alabama or Tennessee or Georgia, and I just felt like a real outsider there. It was not a very welcoming place at the time, and I felt I was better than some of the people at the paper, but that didn't matter to our sports editor. He was sort of a start your way at the bottom, and through attrition and all that, you'll. I didn't want to be there that long to have to do to get better assignments. So I was gone within 6 or 8 months, probably.
And where was the next stop?
Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was a fantastic place if you like the mountains, if you like the blue skies, if you like good Mexican food, which I like all three. So it was good. It was a good place. And at some point, when I was there, I did a lot of good work, but I just came to a place where I was either going to bump my head on the ceiling. I did everything there that I really thought I could do. Mm-hmm. And did I want to stagnate in my career for the next 30, 40 years, or did I want to move on and try it someplace else? And I just decided that it was time to move on and try it someplace else.
And was that the time you came to Kansas City?
That's when I came to Kansas City.
What was that?
Started at the Kansas City Star. Yes, I did.
What was that process like, and did you consider any other places to take the next step?
Yeah, there were some other things out there, but I thought the Star was a good place to work, and it was for a lot of years. I mean, we really had that sports section was rolling for a while. You look at the people who came through, from Joe Posnanski to Wright Thompson to Liz Merrill and Jason Whitlock and 100 people I'm forgetting here. I mean, it was just so much talent, and this is going to sound funny, but sometimes we'd have staff meetings, and I'd go in there, and I was thinking, do I really belong here? I mean, this is a lot of talented people. It was kind of an awesome feeling to be a part of that, and that was probably in the early 2000s maybe, but then the recession hit, and newspapers started really feeling that, and things changed there. And after a while, it was time for me to go. It was become evident that I wasn't, the Star couldn't give me what I wanted anymore, and it was time for me to look around and find something else.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
There's no need to get a case of the Mondays every week, not during football season anyway. Hey, this is Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery, and we are the place for Monday Night Football. Food and drink specials every week, and all new televisions always at 23rd Street Brewery. The hardest thing about Mondays now will be getting through the workday, although waking up on Tuesdays might be a little bit tough. But remember, watch all the Chiefs games, NFL games, every game at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code ClinkScale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
Before you spend your time and money going after an MBA, ask yourself why. Is it so you can tell people you got your MBA? So you can add a line to your CV? So you can call it a CV instead of a resume? Truth is, any MBA will do that. On the other hand, if your goal is to learn how to successfully manage and grow a business with real-world insights from experienced professionals, well, consider getting your MBA from Park University. Our low student-to-teacher ratio gives you personalized attention. And our face-to-face and online classes offered in 8-week terms are designed with working professionals like you in mind. No wonder the Kansas City Business Journal ranks Park University as the top MBA program in the area. Classes begin June 10th at all 4 KC area locations: Parkville, Downtown, Independence, and Lenexa. Visit park.edu to get started.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Let's backtrack to when you came to Kansas City. Our guest is Adam Teicher. He works for ESPN since 2013. After a long stint with the Kansas City Star, he has covered the Kansas City Chiefs since 1992. Is that
1993?
1993. So you and Magic Johnson were together at Michigan State, and you and Joe Montana decided to come at the same time.
Yes, I think the Chiefs traded for him. He agreed to come here knowing I was here, Montana.
What was your initial reaction to being here in Kansas City?
Well, what a great place. I love the Midwest. It is a fantastic place. It really is, and what I couldn't or felt like I couldn't get in either Tennessee or New Mexico, I could have the best of both worlds, I think, here. And I met my wife not long after I moved to Kansas City, maybe 3 months or so, 2-3 months after I moved here, and our daughter was born here. It's just been a fantastic time. I feel lucky to have spent a good portion of my life here.
Tell me about the circumstances of meeting your wife.
Yeah, well, I was my first assignment, or one of my first assignments when I started the Star, was to cover the NCAA. The NCAA offices were in Kansas City at the time, as you recall, and I went down to Dallas for the annual NCAA convention and went out one night with a number of the people who worked at the NCAA. Well, my wife was from Kansas City. She had just moved to Dallas, and so she knew these people at the NCAA, so we all just sort of went out as a group, and we sort of hit it off. And she ended up moving back to Kansas City not too long after that. So it was that's the story in a nutshell.
Was it instant attraction? Did you have to overcome some barriers, or
we just sort of hit it off, and
right.
it wasn't forced. We just sort of hit it off, and it was a fantastic. It was really a great thing.
So you said you were covering the NCAA. Were you not the Chiefs beat writer right away?
Not when I came here. There were maybe 3 or 4 years when I first got here that I wasn't on the Chiefs beat.
And what'd you do?
Little of this, little of that, general assignment things. The NCAA was one of them. I did some Chiefs home games.
When you'd have an expanded staff or whatever.
Yeah, right. Early on, there was some KU and MU and Kansas State coverage that first year or two. So there was some little bit of this, little bit of that.
What did you feel like your style was going to be? Since you've been here, you've never been a columnist. Did you ever have any designs on being a columnist, or were you more repertorial in your outlook?
No, I never. I did do some column writing in Albuquerque, but never thought that was my thing. I always felt like, sometimes it came naturally, but sometimes I felt like I was forcing some things, and I felt like if I had to do this 3, 4, 5 times a week, that I might have trouble producing good content. So being a columnist was never something that I really wanted to do. I've been able to do some of that since I've come to ESPN a little bit, but nothing that I've wanted to do, and I've sort of liked the arc that there's been. You've
been a beat writer for a long time now for the Chiefs, and the art of being a beat writer has evolved so much, not just from a technological standpoint or anything else, but for a long time, and you can tell me how long, when you wrote a game story, you described the game. I mean, you talked about the game. There wasn't this assumption that everybody had seen the game, and even if they had, you wanted to provide an outline for it. How did that evolve and change?
Oh, amazing how the things have changed in that regard. The assumption now is that everybody's seen the game, either at the game or on TV. Everybody's seen it, so you're wasting your time if you're telling people what happened. And if you follow me on Twitter during the games, I don't go over, hey, who just scored the touchdown, or
right,
what's the score, or how much time's left. Everybody, I figure, knows that. I don't need to throw that on your plate as well. Reporting of stories is different. I mean, back in the day, you had one deadline, and it was 11 o'clock, midnight, whatever it was, and you needed to have your story straight by then, but you didn't need to have a story in immediately.
Right.
And now you sort of write first and ask questions later, and you add to the story as it goes along, and that took a little time to learn how to do. It was not the same process as it once was, but that's how it is now in a 24/7 news world.
Describe the decision to go to ESPN. You were fairly early. Now it is so commonplace for people to work for a short period of time at a newspaper, and the newspaper industry obviously is struggling, and then quickly find a spot like The Athletic or ESPN or something like that. But you were relatively early on in that process. So what was it about that time that was good for you?
Well, ESPN expanded into coverage of all of the 32 teams, and a friend of mine sort of tipped me off that they were going to be doing this, and I really hadn't heard that, and so I did a little bit of research on the process, and believe it or not, I researched what I could find about this project that ESPN was going to be starting on the internet, and believe it or not, at the end of that hour, no kidding, my phone rang, and it was ESPN calling me and asking me if I would be interested in talking to them about a job and whether I'd heard what they were doing. And luckily I wasn't in the dark. I did this research and knew a little bit about it. So that's how that part of it got started. They contacted me. They were looking for some of the beat writers for some of the local teams, not all of them, but some of them, and I was one, and it was a good time.
How much transition was that for you, the demands that they would make, or just a different style of reportage? It's a hometown thing. Most of the people who are going to go to the ESPN Chiefs page are Chiefs fans, but certainly they want a more national perspective on things too.
No doubt.
What was the adjustment like for you?
Yeah, that was an adjustment. I mean, working for the Star, every little thing that happened with the Chiefs was news, and it still is to the Star. But with ESPN, it's more, hey, you're not necessarily just writing for Chiefs fans. You're writing for NFL fans who want to know about the Chiefs.
Right.
So naturally, there's more interest in the big name players, the Patrick Mahomeses, the Travis Kelce's, the Tyrann Matthews, the Frank Clarks. I mean, that's where the real interest is. And it took a little time to not have to worry about to feel like, hey, it's okay not to worry about what the Chiefs are doing with the practice squad. I mean, I still follow it, but I don't necessarily write about it anymore.
Right.
And there is it sounds like maybe a subtle difference, but it's really not. I mean, it's a dramatic difference to instead of necessarily covering the team for the fans, covering the team for a broader audience.
You guys started, with being a Chiefs beat writer when they were really at their peak of their heyday of the 90s, and Marty Schottenheimer's in full throat, and you got the 2-a-days up in River Falls and 3-a-days actually, I think at one point then. What was that whole thing like for you? Yeah,
it was to be dropped into the middle of that, even though I'd lived in Kansas City for a few years, was an amazing experience. The interest in that team, as you recall at the time, was just it rivals what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to joke when I returned to the town to be a reporter. I came back to the area in like 95, but I mean, for Kansas City, back on the air in Kansas City, no, not back on the air in Kansas City, I remember vividly saying to the audience that this team is treated like 4-time Super Bowl champions, and they didn't even make it, haven't even made it yet. Everybody had a radio show. I mean, it was unbelievable.
It was. Yeah, you're right. Everybody did. Had a radio show. So it was an amazing experience. It really was. And just to be dropped in the middle of that was fantastic. It really was.
I wanted to ask you about the dynamics of being a beat writer. It's, it has always looked to me, football's a little bit different, but not really. But when I'm observing the baseball beat writer or the football beat writer, I'm thinking, boy, that's a job I would not want to do. And, obviously it has some rewards, but the balance you have to strike between trying to get a story, trying to create relationships enough so that you can get stories, but with the knowledge that, in some regards you're not a columnist, but in some regards you're going to have to give bad news out about players. What's that whole thing like?
It's a delicate balance. I mean, you're tiptoeing sometimes, and fans don't appreciate this part of it. Obviously you do, but you can't be a fan. I mean, you have to be objective. And if I was a fan and couldn't be objective, I wouldn't have this job. That's just the way it is. I mean, you have to go about it in that regard. I won't sit here and tell you that I want to see the Chiefs lose. That's certainly not in my best interest either. I don't want to see that either. But I'm neutral in that respect. And but it is sometimes a balancing act to go in the locker room and wonder, okay, what's the player's reaction when I'm going to ask him this? I mean, but it's what I'm paid to do, and it is the job, and I think that's maybe the one aspect of this job that a lot of people just don't understand is how delicate it can be sometimes.
Talk about your relationship with Marty Schottenheimer. Probably until Andy Reid, the coach that you'll be remembered for covering the most. Yeah.
I mean, he was. I like Marty, thought he was a great coach, but got a little too deep at the end. He started collecting a lot of guys who were trouble in the locker room, and it got him in the end. I mean, that's why he quit. He knew this was a ship that was sinking and couldn't turn it around because they had so many bad characters on that team toward the end. But I got along with him fine and enjoyed bumping into him from time to time over the years as the years went on. I haven't seen him in a while now, yeah. But we got cross ways a few times, but I think he always appreciated the job that I did, and I respected him certainly as a good head coach.
After this, there was a succession of coaches. You'd have Gunther and then on, and there was a lot of losing. So you start off, and the Chiefs are hell on wheels for a few years. There were some disappointing playoff losses, et cetera, but they won most of the time, and they were a big story, and so on and so forth. And then, for the most part, with some exceptions, the Chiefs have been pretty bad, a lot of times. What's it like covering a losing football team?
Not as bad as most people imagine. There's a lot of good stories in a losing locker room. It's not as fun for those guys, of course, as it would be as if they're winning. And so there's a lot of good stories. What I've told people over the years is every Chiefs season is interesting. They're all interesting for their own reasons, for different reasons. But every Chiefs season is interesting, and even the losing seasons have been interesting. I think. I mean, there's been the last 2-14 season, the Romeo Cornell season with the murder suicide with Jovan Belcher. I mean, what a those players had to play a game that next game.
Right.
And I'll never forget Brady Quinn, one of my all-time favorite Chiefs players. What a stand-up guy he was. So there were just so many interesting stories and so many interesting people. And for those guys to have to carry on, not just the players, the coaches as well, some of them who saw it in the parking lot, to carry on and to play the way they did the next day was one of the most amazing things I've seen on this beat. And it happened in a 2-14 season. The other win they had that year, you remember down in New Orleans when
right.
The Chiefs were behind the whole game, never led during the game, tied it up right at the end of regulation, and then won it in overtime. It was just an amazing story. So every season has its stories, and they're, it's not as popular or as much in the public eye as when the Chiefs are winning, but there's still some interesting stories out there.
When you sound like you did say earlier that you appreciated the arc of your career. When you look at it now, is covering one sport all the time challenging for you, or is it something that you've just has become part of your life?
There's a lot of times where I look at that I think of a story idea and I said, you know what, I've done something a little too similar to this. I probably should stay away from that. So, it's a little more challenging in that respect to come up with story ideas. But no, I feel like I've done a pretty good job in that regard over the years. And, I'm still interested in how things are going to turn out with every Chiefs game, with every Chiefs season. So until that changes, I'll keep doing this, I think.
Through the years, what are the things that made you happy away from your job? You raised one daughter, and obviously you're still married, have a successful marriage. And what are the things that get you away from the game, or what vacation things do you like to do?
Yeah, when I unplug, I unplug. I mean, sometimes I have no idea. Actually, all the time when I'm gone, I have no idea what's going on with the Chiefs. That's one thing that I do when I unplug. I really unplug because that helps get away, because it is hard to get away during the season or even during the off season. So I do that, but my wife and I love to travel, and we've spent a lot of time out west in Colorado and places like that, and in Europe as well. And we were thinking maybe we'd like to move to Europe or to Italy at some point when we're both done working. So we'll see if maybe we do that, maybe we don't. But
what do you think it is about that? We talked about maybe our similarities in outlook. My wife and I have gone to the south of France the last couple of years. One time related to my daughter's graduation, we built a trip around that. It's an area we really enjoy, and I also could definitely see myself living somewhere like that. What do you think?
It's just such a different lifestyle. It truly is amazing. We've been into Italy and some of these little small
villages, right?
They're built up on hilltops. For people who haven't been there, they've been built up on hilltops with walls around them for defense purposes. These towns are so old that that was necessary when the towns began, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and there's still people living in there. And just what a fantastic lifestyle. Everything, the vegetables and the food are brought in every single day, fresh. I mean, it's just a fantastic way of life.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting if you do. When you're on vacation, you obviously see the best of it. It's like going to New York City or something. I love going to New York City. Yeah. I think I would have liked to live there when I was young. I don't know if I would now, but they're probably roll your eyes eventually if you do live in New York City. My younger daughter just moved to New York City, so that would be a curiosity for me. I know you've been a runner through the years, right?
I run regularly, yes.
And you've held up. I haven't held up as well as you.
Knock on wood, I have. I ride my bike a lot too, and I've had some crashes on my bike, so I put a lot of miles on my bike. That's one thing I really enjoy. Not the crashing, but the ride, the non-crashing. But it's been worth it. I mean, I've really enjoyed that, and that's something I'd like to keep up on as well.
Right. Tell me about raising a daughter, and she's turned out quite well.
She's fantastic. She is. She got a job over the summer in Charleston, South Carolina at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Good job.
She's a scientist down there, and she talks about things and what she's doing down there. It's all over my head, which is great. The best thing in the world is to have a kid who's smarter than you. So that's how it is for me. And she's fantastic, and she's enjoying it down there, which was a little bit of a concern when she went there for the job. She didn't know anybody down there, but she's met some people and seems to be fitting into that Southern culture a lot better than I did when I went down there at a similar age.
Tell me about your relationship with your wife. You seem, I've been around you some, not a lot, both of you. You seem quite happy. You seem to be. Most couples are a little bit different. You two seem quite similar. You're both upbeat, voluble, like to talk, stuff like that. Would you say there's a lot of similarities there?
I never thought about it in those terms, but yeah, I think so. We just both been through some things that made us who we are, like every person. But it's been a wonderful 26 years now that we've been married, almost 26 and a half now. So it's been a great time, and it's just been fantastic.
I've often found that the best times with your spouse are when you're on vacation, that each person might be their best self when they're doing that. What are some of your would you agree with that, and what are some of the favorite places you have?
No, we just enjoy each other's company all the time. We do little things every day to put a little weekend in our week, as it were. We both work unusual schedules, not 8 to 5 certainly. So we try to sneak some time in here and there to do special stuff, things that we both like, and So, hey, vacation's great. Don't get me wrong, but we find ways to make it work, even when we're here in Kansas City.
How long do you see yourself doing the reporting?
I foreseeable future. The move to ESPN has been great. I've had to learn new ways to report. I do, believe it or not, they put this face on TV, believe it or not, and that was a totally foreign concept to me. So I had to take some training and learn how to do that. So there's just it seems like there's new horizons here all the time. So writing obviously is my main thing, but not the only thing. So as long as they'll have me, I imagine I'll want to do this.
You've had a long and nice relationship with radio, too, and this is absolutely true. I've always enjoyed having you on any program I was doing, but you were always somebody that I wanted to listen to, that I would sit in the car and listen to the last few minutes. Adam's going to be on, or I want to. I don't have to do anything right this minute. It seems to come kind of natural to you. I guess that's not that unusual when you have a brother who's a broadcaster. But what do you like about just that exchange?
Oh, I'm a little more free to give opinions on the radio. I mean, it's not necessarily my job. Certainly wasn't when I was at the newspaper. Maybe a little more now, but actually a lot more probably at ESPN. But it's just a good way to get immediate information out and to share opinions. I've always loved going on 810 and talking with you or Kevin or Saran or whoever it might be, the Jason now and the guys in the morning. It's I've always enjoyed that part of it, and I'm glad that's been a part of my career. I really am.
My personal nickname for myself is the Happy Cynic. I find myself a very happy person, but other people think of me as a bit of a curmudgeon, I think, at times. You seem to be an extremely always happy person, but there's a little curmudgeon in there, too.
Yeah, it's like we're brothers, right? I mean, I don't know if people would refer to me as a happy cynic, but I think most people see me as that curmudgeon type, that old, just grumpy type of person. But I think people who take the time to know me know that's not really who I am.
Right. Adam, it's always been a pleasure to talk with you, and it was a pleasure to do it again today, and I hope people get a little more sense of the person that they read all the time for these almost 30 years, an association. That's a pretty damn good run, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, and this has been fun. I've enjoyed this last half hour or whatever it's been, for sure.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.